Welcome to the SIP, the Solstice Innovations podcast. In each episode, we chat with industry experts and innovators in insurance and insurtech. Join us for insights on trends, technologies, and the stories driving our industry forward. Let's sip on knowledge together at the SIP. Hi, this is John Umstead for Solstice Innovations. On this two-part episode of the SIP, our guest is Gregg Porter, who is the National Flood Sales Director with Bankers Insurance. Hey, so flood, wind, fire, all of those risks are increasingly becoming interconnected. So how should consumers really think about protecting their homes when multiple perils can result from the same event?
Exactly. I think this is where I think we spoke about this in the last podcast, John, is AI analytics, predictive patterns, warning systems, water detectors. There's just a smart home. You see Simply Safe, Ring cameras. Today, the homeowner is more connected to their home than ever before. And I'm hoping that, back to the consultant piece for the insurance agent, that their insurance agent is actually a viable person of, someone that's looking to research, as a medical doctor would say. They're just not treating patients, but they're researching medicine is what doctors do for a living. And I think that a good insurance agent can be the same way. Have contact with their carriers. I'm with Bankers Insurance Group. I make sure to share everything I know with my independent agents. And I'm hoping then that's the domino effect, that they will be able to talk to their insureds and say, this is what we need to do. Use AI, useful tool, but again, not to be hypocrite. Of course we want to embrace the technology, but keep that human touch as much as we can to have that consultant, because they're going to know your risk inside and out better than anyone before. And I think that insurance carriers have sort of pivoted the last few years to more from a risk transfer perspective. They've pivoted to more of a risk prediction and mitigation with all the AI analytics and tools that are out there, which is great. And I think that's trickled down to the consumer as far as warning systems and just the insured being more prepared than ever before when it comes to utilizing technology. So it's no one's being left out. Insurance companies are adapting to it. The insureds are also adaptive, and you have to be able to, who wants to be left behind, right? So I think that's the best way to use those tools as much as we can. And it's just started. I mean, sort of the tip of the iceberg, right? With AI the last 3 or 4 years. Can you imagine we're having this conversation in 2030, how much different it's going to look? So a lot of exciting things out there.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the policyholder, the consumer, because that's actually where my next question was going to go. So it may not be a relevant question at this point. We may have covered it, but exactly what I was going to ask was, what kind of technological advancements are there that are helping insureds, those policyholders, to better prepare and respond to storms more effectively?
Yeah, claims handling. Look what it's done with drones. SAR, synthetic aperture radar, which we spoke about. And I was a panelist last year in the flood conference and spoke about technology, LiDAR, light detection and ranging, how that's completely transformed how an elevation certificate is taken. All these things. So basically a real-time map of flooding in your home can be calculated versus, 5 or 10 years ago when maybe that claims adjuster had to be more of a boots on ground approach. Parametric insurance. I think we touched on this one last time we spoke. Parametric insurance, if that, that predetermined trigger is met. Here you go. No questions asked. John, it's not even 48 hours. Some of these 24 hours an ACH deposit is made in the insured's account. Here's your, no questions asked, $40,000, $60,000, whatever that claim payment may be. And a different conversation, of course, maybe if that predetermined trigger is not met, but parametric insurance is definitely changing how insurance is purchased and how it's calculated. And I do think the same thing with sensors and drones and just real time. A roof, for example, now underwriting has been so, it's effective. It's an effective tool in how risks are rated. Now the age of the roof, Google Earth, think of all the technology that we have. And it's just making things safer and better. And I think insureds alike with their companies, with their insurance agents. And again, it all starts with the human element.
So I'm going to change it up a little bit. I was going to ask about agents and how they can have more meaningful preparedness conversations with their clients, and I think we've talked a lot about that. Just making sure your portfolio of insurance policies, coverage, deductibles all make sense for the level of risk that you have and the types of things that you're protecting. Let's flip this question a little bit. When something happens and an insured has a claim or believes they have a claim, um, it's so easy today to file your first notice of loss, electronically. Some people might sit and debate, gosh, do I get a hold of my agent or just not? What might your advice be in terms from the policyholder's perspective? Should they contact their agents, even if they can easily report that first notice of loss?
You maintain the rapport and the camaraderie, I think, better than you would on your app, on your couch or your car, or wherever you may be. Because again, back to technology, I can, if I'm at the airport waiting on a flight, yes, on my phone, I can do it all. But I feel that you're not gonna, and your agent won't of course get upset or anything like that. But because you're utilizing a piece of technology from that insurance company that's offering that service. But I personally, and this is going to vary from person to person, but my experience is always going to be, I think that agent's going to value that phone call or that email. And they're going to say, wow, this person really cares about what I do for them. And it's just going to strengthen the relationship. Not that a relationship may need strengthening, but it's going to get to know you. And I think that's where you're going to find that maybe that meeting twice a year or at once a year just to review everything, that agent's going to say this person cares, and maybe they'll service you better. Maybe you're just not lost in the shuffle. Like this person is one of those, they don't read their renewal notices, they don't check the mail, they just throw away and some people, I know some people that are guilty of that. Maybe they're just too busy. If I were an independent agent, I would love that client, that insured, that absolutely picked up the phone, emailed me and says, hey, I want you to have eyes on this policy because I love your app. I know I can do it online, but I prefer that human touch. So I think that just brings more synergy to the relationship and makes it just better and more just overall that insurance agent. Now, maybe when your homeowners renewal goes up or your auto, they're going to be more apt, I think, to shop it for you and to give you better service.
Yeah, and I think there's a tendency as well. Well, I don't think there's a tendency for policyholders that don't that maybe have never operated or worked within the insurance industry that have a feeling like this industry is just out to get me, right? Out to take my
Oh yeah.
money, and then when I need them, they're not there. And so I think when you have that relationship with the agent, that can kind of soften that a little bit. And to your earlier point, that agent can be a consultant to them and perhaps even, to a degree, make you feel like they're also an advocate for you. At least help you to understand that, well, no, the company isn't out just trying to deny your claim. Here's what's really going on. Here's what you need to do to maximize,
Yeah.
your results. So,
Absolutely. And it's sometimes insurance, there's a stigma. There's this just a
yeah,
commodity, right? It's just
yeah,
that I get a deck page. Now my 401k, my Vanguard account, that's fun. I mean, who do, you look at the stock market, $8,000 I made to, this quarter I'm up, 25, whatever percent.
yeah,
Those are feel good things from a financial planner. You love that. There's an adrenaline rush, if you will, because you're going to hit that retirement number, which is great. I mean, who doesn't want that? You work hard. Of course, you want to see where every dollar is going, and that's what a great financial planner would do. But that the insurance person, that they can absolutely do the same for you and making sure you're covered. I told you about an umbrella. What's an umbrella? Oh, okay, so $1 million of coverage in case somebody, I max out my car, my auto limits 250. There's just so many things. It's the same thing with a flood insurance policy. What about life insurance? It's just so many revenue streams from that agent to keep them, making sure that they're making their clients happy and paying their employees. And it really helps, again, to build that relationship because the insured is going to say, wow, they told me about a coverage I didn't know about. They made sure that I had a right deductible in place. I had too little auto coverage. Now I have the right amount. It can go on and on and on. Same thing with flood insurance, of course. Back to what I said earlier with contents. Okay, my agent told me today I had dwelling. I'm so thankful that I added contents. Maybe up an excess policy for flood. John, I own my own business. Maybe you have I didn't know that you could get 500,000 of coverage for them from the NFIP for a commercial policy, but I needed 1.5 million. Oh, so the other million came from, they informed me, they gave me a broker that took care of my excess flood. So it just makes, everything smooth and just flow better. And I think that's where the communication, the consultant, it always will be the salesperson, right? But the consultant's going to make the insured happy. And guess what that insured is going to do? They're going to tell 10 people about their experience, right? Or maybe even more, in saying, and then that person tells it, and so it's a very much a good referral system.
Yeah, for sure. If you have a great experience, you become the marketing arm
Yeah,
for whoever is providing that service, and that's the best form of marketing, is that word of
absolutely.
mouth and testimony. So, not just in insurance, but in life and career, pretty much everything. But we'll keep it focused on insurance. But in everything that we do, whenever something happens, so in insurance world, after a major catastrophe, hopefully we've learned something, right? So, looking back at some recent storm seasons, what kind of stands out for you as something the industry's improved and something that maybe we still need to get a little bit better at?
We need to get better at communication. And I say this, I go on LinkedIn, you go on Instagram, Facebook, and that the world is definitely back to what we said earlier, is just a lot going on with social media. I think we can go back, what we can learn from is go back to that basic, the office maybe, or there's even the Zoom call, but that more personal relationship with the independent agent. I think that there's going to be always technology. Like I said earlier, can you imagine this conversation 4 years from now with the tools we'll have? You always have to embrace. No one wants to be left behind, but never minimize that human touch. Back to kind of what my nephew said about, I just want everything on my app, whatever. And there's outliers. I feel that no matter of regardless of, your age, your socioeconomic background, what may have, whatever insurance policy you may have, I think that person, that insured, that agent, that relationship needs to be just stronger. And again, everyone's on their phones, right? Looking at social media, promoting this and that, which is great. Digital marketing, things have changed, but let's not change that aspect of it with that consultant, that being a consultant rather than a salesperson. And I think we've learned a lot, that can get better. But one thing too that we're going to continue to see the rise of again is these newer insurance, these means, if you will, the drones, the satellite imagery, AI analytics, predictive. I'm a baseball fan. 10 years ago, analytics was sort of kind of making its way into MLB. Now everything is analytics driven. They're looking at launch rate, launch angle. Same thing with golf. Has the game changed drastically? It depends who you ask, but I mean, I think both sports have it. Just even if you don't like it, it's gotten better. Same thing if you could tie in what's changed in some sports with insurance, because change is inevitable. And I think that drones, satellite imagery, all the technology we have are just going to make claims process so much faster and better for the insured. And a lot of exciting things to come too with parametric flood, not just for flood insurance, but parametric insurance. Have this predetermined trigger set, and it's just a smoother process all around. And so that's the positive. And I think, like I said, back to what I just said about things being that could change a little bit, is I love what we see online, but never lose that, you don't want it to replace or supersede the human connection. You always want to have that agent in mind if you can find, especially the really, and you hear this with financial planners, I need to change mine, or, and do it. I mean, shop around. Absolutely. There are plenty of independent agents out there, captive agents, whatever line you choose. Just make sure you have a good relationship.
Mhm. Yeah, I really like your Major League Baseball analogy there, because it's pretty amazing. You can watch a game and pitch by pitch, they might put predictive stats up, right? Like, in this circumstance, this batter is 71% likely
Yeah.
to pop up,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever, or strike out, or what. And with every pitch, they change those stats, and it's instantaneous. And I don't think we're too far off from being able to do similar things in terms of risk. This storm is coming. You are at 10% chance of
Yeah.
having a claim. Whatever. That predictive analytics um, is going to go well beyond what the underwriters use, right? To
Absolutely.
and the actuaries use to put the
Yeah.
products together, and it'd be right there on the policyholders app.
Yeah. And each MLB manager is looking at this in the dugout, and they're just going to change the way they do scouting reports. They're preparing for that lineup. They're
Yeah.
preparing for what, versus, watching, I grew up watching baseball. So in the 80s, 90s, I mean, go back to the 60s and 70s, it's maybe the catcher kind of felt this and they would do, and the pitcher would nod his head. No, I want to throw this,
Yeah.
fastball, curveball. And it's completely changed. And then there, golf, same thing with the apex, the how high the 7-iron versus a 9-iron, and then ball speed. It's fabulous, but there's still a feel for it though, right? You still want to have a gut feeling. You don't want analytics to take over completely. Just like insurance, again, back to insurance, have that human element, but embrace what we're seeing, like you said, John, with AI and all these wonderful tools that we have out there.
Yeah, and the analytics are also not a guarantee. So
Yeah,
there's
that's a good point.
that chance factor in there as well.
Absolutely.
All right, Greg. So we've covered a lot of territory. So let's start to wrap some things up. Um,
Yeah.
so one big question though, if every homeowner listening today took a look at one thing that they could do this week to better prepare themselves for the storm season, what would you recommend that be?
Take your iPhone or your Android device and do a 2 to 4 minute, depending on the size of your home, do a really good video. Take pictures of everything. I know Redfin is great. Zillow is great. They have pictures of your home, but you talk about helping that claims adjuster. Just do a walkthrough. You go through your basement, you go in your kitchen, you go upstairs, you go to do a whole video. I said 2 to 4 minutes. Maybe it could be 10 minutes. Just video everything you can. It will be a immenseful help to that claim adjuster when it comes to claim time. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes back in Louisiana. That was 10 years ago with the flood. Can you imagine now with technology that we have? And I think because what else is a better bird's eye view from a clear, especially with the technology we have now with not pixelated. These videos are very sharp and clean. And that's really what I would say. Of course you have your hurricane preparedness kit. Keep your documents safe. All these things you could think of in the flood claims manual. But I would say a video is a very powerful tool to use when it comes to a claim.
That's great advice. I love it. So, all right, Greg, that's pretty much everything that I was hoping we would cover. But before we wrap for real, is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, just this is great. I appreciate what you do at Solstice, John. The opportunity for me to be here is really great to just promote this awareness, promote education, promote this podcast, and people can at least learn. I mean, even the most seasoned, 30, 40 years in the industry could take something out of this. Maybe those who just graduated college or in producer school that have done insurance for 6 months, regardless of your level of expertise. I just love what we do and just provide as much content and education as we can. So this is wonderful.
All right, Greg. Well, again, thanks for coming back to the SIP. Appreciate it very much, and have a great one.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, John. Have a great day.